Here they are, every WSOP main event champion from 1970 to 2024, how they won, what they left behind, and where they are now. 1970, Johnny Moss. The first WSOP main event didn't have a final hand, just a vote. 7 players, 1 room, and a unanimous decision. Johnny Moss was crowned the inaugural world champion. Already a feared Texas road gambler, the grand old man of poker was respected more for his longevity than table presence that year. Moss went on to win 2 more titles and became a poker patriarch before his passing in 1995. 1971, Johnny Moss, again. This time, he actually played cards. The WSOP introduced the freeze-out format, and Moss beat Jack Treetop Strauss heads up with pocket sixes. The field, just 6 players. But this format became the permanent WSOP blueprint. Moss's back-to-back dominance solidified him as the face of early tournament poker. 1972, Amarillo Slim. With only 8 players, the charismatic Thomas Amarillo Slim Preston captured poker's biggest stage. After beating Puggy Pearson, Slim took his show on the road, literally appearing on Johnny Carson and bringing poker to America's living rooms. He stayed in the spotlight for decades, but his legacy became complicated before his death in 2012. 1973, Puggy Pearson. Puggy didn't just win, it was poetic justice. The man who pushed for freeze-out tournaments triumphed in one, topping a 13-player field. His famous line, "I'll play any man from any land, any game he can name." He beat Johnny Moss heads up and rode that victory into Hall of Fame status. 1974, Johnny Moss, 3rd title. At 66, Moss proved old school still ruled. His pocket freeze beat Crandall Addington, earning him a 3rd main event title, a record that would stand for decades. The field grew to 16 players, and Moss cemented himself as poker's original legend. 1975, Sailor Roberts. A former Navy man and part of the original Texas Rounders, Brian, Sailor Roberts beat a field of 21. Pocket Jack sealed the win, but he never chased the spotlight. Quiet and respected, Sailor faded from poker in later years and passed in 1995, remembered as one of the game's founding outlaws. 1976, Doyle Brunson. This was the birth of the 10-2. Doyle Brunson hit a full house with 10-2, suited to defeat Jesse Alto and win his first main event. The field was only 22 players, but the legend of Texas Dolly was born. Brunson would go on to become poker's godfather, with 10 bracelets and a presence that lasted into his 80s. 1977, Doyle Brunson, back-to-back. Brunson did it again, and unbelievably, with the same 10-2 hands. He beat Gary Berland and made history with back-to-back titles. 34 players entered, and Doyle's myth grew even larger. In the years that followed, he wrote Super System, mentoring a new generation of poker killers. 1978, Bobby Baldwin. At just 28, Baldwin became the youngest champ so far, besting 42 players with pocket queens. Nicknamed the Owl, Bobby later transitioned into casino management and helped design the Bellagio poker room. He's still considered one of the sharpest minds in poker, on and off the felt. 1979, Hal Fowler. Poker's biggest underdog story. Fowler, an amateur, shocked the pros by defeating Bobby Hoff in a 54-player field. He cracked aces with 7-6 to win it all. Doyle Brunson called it the biggest upset in poker history. Fowler disappeared from the spotlight soon after, but his win opened the floodgates for amateurs everywhere. Segue to next era. By the end of the 70s, the WSOP had gone from a smoky backroom gathering to a growing national event. Television was knocking, new legends were rising, and poker, once a gambler's niche, was on the brink of something bigger. Up next, cocaine, comebacks, and the most gifted card player of all time. The 80s marked the beginning of poker's televised era. The fields grew, the stories got darker, and a kid named Stu changed everything. The pros still ruled the tables, but for the first time, the world was watching. 1980, Stu Ungar. At just 26, Stu the Kid. Ungar exploded onto the scene. A gin rummy prodigy, Ungar dominated 72 entrants with an ultra-aggressive style. In the final hand, he made a straight to beat Doyle Brunson. Yes, the Doyle Brunson. It was his first try at the WSOP, and he left with the title and a reputation as the most naturally gifted card player in history. 1981, Stu Ungar, back-to-back. Ungar did what only a legend could, win again. His A-Queen took down Perry Green in a 75-player field. Ungar's uncanny ability to read opponents made him a menace at the table. Off the felt though, the signs of addiction were already surfacing. For now, the kid was still untouchable. 1982, Jack Treetop Strauss. Down to a single chip, literally. Strauss coined the poker phrase, a chip and a chair. He mounted the most legendary comeback ever to win over 103 players. His AT beat Dewey Tomko in the final hand. Strauss died of a heart attack at a poker table in '88, but his legacy, immortal. 1983, Tom McAvoy. McAvoy changed poker's economics forever. He was the first champ to win after entering through a satellite tournament. A former accountant, Tom turned a small buy-in into a $540,000 payday, defeating Rod Pete after 7 hours heads up. He later advocated for smoke-free poker rooms and co-wrote several poker strategy books. 1984, Jack Keller. A former Air Force veteran, nicknamed Gentleman Jack, Keller beat 131 opponents. His pocket tens held up for the win. This year was also the first to award six-figure payouts to multiple players, proof that the WSOP was growing. Keller passed in 2003, but his steady style and class earned him wide respect. 1985, Bill Smith. Wild Bill. Smith was either the best player or the worst, depending on how drunk he was. TJ Cloutier once said Smith was unbeatable when tipsy, but terrible when drunk. Luckily, he hit that sweet spot in the finale, beating Cloutier himself with pocket threes. Smith died young due to alcoholism, but his unpredictable genius is part of WSOP lore. 1986, Barry Johnston. Johnston was consistently personified. He won over a field of 141 with AT, beating Mike Halfcock. This was his fifth straight final table appearance, an insane streak. Barry kept cashing in events well into his 80s and is a true Hall of Fame grinder still seen in WSOP Seniors events. 1987, Johnny Chan. Nicknamed the Orient Express, Johnny Chan steamrolled 152 players to win his first title. His A9 beat Frank Henderson, and that little orange he kept on the table for luck became iconic. Chan was the first non-Western champ, and he brought speed and style that poker hadn't seen before. 1988, Johnny Chan back-to-back. Chan returned and conquered. Facing a young Eric Seidel heads up, Chan slow played a flopped straight and induced the most famous bluff in poker history. His win was later immortalized in the movie Rounders. This was the last back-to-back win of the century and nearly became a three-peat. 1989, Phil Hellmuth. That third title for Chan, blocked. A 24-year-old kid from Wisconsin, Phil Hellmuth ended the streak. His pocket nines beat Chan's A7 in a 178-player field. The poker brat was born, and 3 decades later, he holds the record for the most bracelets. Love him or hate him, Hellmuth changed the game forever. Segue to next era. By the close of the 80s, poker had its first global stars, its first viral moments, and a growing fan base thanks to ESPN broadcasts. From Ungar's talent to Hellmuth's bravado, the foundation for poker stardom was set. Up next, the world joins the table and the money gets real. As the 90s began, poker's borders expanded. Champions came from the UK, Ireland, and beyond. The prize, now a cool $1 million. The game was getting global and a little more unpredictable. 1990, Mansour Matloubi. Born in Iran, based in London, Mansour Matloubi became the first non-American champion. He outlasted 193 players and beat Hans Tuna Lund with pocket sixes. Calm and calculated, Matloubi never sought fame, but his win proved poker was no longer just America's game. 1991, Brad Daugherty. Brad Daugherty made history by becoming the first WSOP champ to win $1 million. The North Carolina pro beat 215 players and topped Don Holt with KJ. Afterward, Brad co-authored books on satellite strategy and quietly transitioned into coaching, still helping players reach the main event. 1992, Hamid Dastmalki. Known for his sarcasm and dry wit, Hamid Dastmalki won over 200 opponents with, you guessed it, 8-4 offsuit. He won $1 million but later clashed with casino brass over uncashed chips, calling them just plastic, worthless. Dastmalki stepped away from the spotlight but remains one of poker's most unique champions. 1993, Jim Bechtel. An actual cotton farmer from Arizona, Jim Bechtel beat over 220 players with J6 suited. He returned to the farm afterward, proving you didn't need to be a full-time pro to win. Incredibly, 26 years later, he won another WSOP bracelet, setting the record for the longest gap between victories. 1994, Russ Hamilton. It was the 25th anniversary of the WSOP, and Russ Hamilton won big, taking home his bodyweight in silver bars, plus the $1 million top prize. He beat Hugh Vincent with K8. Years later, Hamilton's legacy collapsed when he was exposed as the mastermind behind the Ultimate Bet online poker cheating scandal, defrauding players of over $20 million. 1995, Dan Harrington. A former lawyer and chess master, Dan Action Dan. Harrington beat the biggest field yet, 273 players. His nickname was ironic. He was famously tight, but he won with 9-8 suited and proved that discipline wins tournaments. Harrington later made final tables in back-to-back years, 2003 and 2004, and authored some of poker's most respected strategy books. 1996, Huck Seed. Towering at 6'7", Huck Seed beat 294 players with 9-8 suited, the same hand as Harrington's previous win. A prop bet fanatic, Huck once tried to float in the ocean for 24 hours. He finally won a WSOP bracelet in 2020 and still plays today, quirky, quiet, and dangerous as ever. 1997, Stu Ungar, third title. 16 years after his second win, Stu Ungar completed the greatest comeback in WSOP history. Staked into the event at the last minute, he crushed a field of 311 and beat John Strazemp with A4. Ungar dedicated the win to his late daughter. It was a beautiful, tragic high note. He died the following year, broken alone, but forever a legend. 1998, Scotty Nguyen. You call, it's gonna be all over, baby. With that line, Scotty Nguyen won it all. He beat 349 players with J9, making a full house. A fan favourite for his charisma, Scotty also backed Mike Matuso that year. Despite some controversial moments later in his career, he remains one of poker's most entertaining and successful figures. 1999, Noel Furlong. A quiet carpet magnate from Ireland, Noel Furlong beat 392 players with pocket fives. He had made a final table 12 years earlier, but finally closed the deal. Furlong didn't stick around the poker world long. He returned to horse betting and business, amassing a fortune and passing away in 2021, leaving behind a $50 million estate. By the end of the 90s, the WSOP was global, the prize was 7 figures, and ESPN was turning poker into primetime drama. But everything was about to explode. The internet changed everything. Satellites moved online, ESPN's cameras captured every bluff, and poker went from backroom hobby to global phenomenon. The fields, bigger, the winners, stranger. This was the golden era of the amateur dream. 2000, Chris Ferguson. Long hair, black hat, and a PhD in computer science, Chris Jesus Ferguson won a 512-player main event. His A9 made a flush against TJ Cloutier's a queen. Known for slicing bananas with playing cards on TV, Ferguson later fell from grace during the Full Tilt poker scandal, but returned in 2017 to win WSOP Player of the Year. 2001, Carlos Mortensen. Carlos El Matador. Mortensen, born in Ecuador and living in Spain, became the first Latino world champion. He stacked his chips like towers and beat a 612-player field with king-queen suited. His victory over Dewey Tomko earned him $1.5 million. He remains the only player to win both the WSOP Main Event and the World Poker Tour Championship. 2002, Robert Varconi. A stockbroker from New York, Robert Varconi was considered the ultimate underdog. He beat 631 players to win $2 million. In the final hand, his QT made a full house. Phil Hellmuth famously promised to shave his head if Varconi won, and had to follow through on camera. Varconi rarely played major events afterward, but still shows up at reunions with a smile. 2003, Chris Moneymaker. An accountant from Tennessee, Chris Moneymaker changed poker forever. After qualifying online for $86, he beat 838 players, and pro Sam Farha with an iconic bluff. His final hand, 5-4, made a full house. The Moneymaker effect inspired millions to play online. His $2.5 million win launched a global poker boom. He remains a beloved ambassador to this day.
Well played.
I missed the flush and I missed the straight draw on that one. That king high.
Made one bad mistake. Good job.
2004, Greg Raymer. Patent attorney Greg Fosselman. Raymer wore lizard eye holographic glasses and used fossils as card protectors. He beat 2,576 players with pocket eights to win $5 million. Raymer made another deep run the next year and became a players' rights advocate. He still plays professionally and remains one of poker's friendliest champions. 2005, Joe Hackham. Australia's Joe Hackham won the largest WSOP main event to date, 5,619 entrants, and shouted, "Thank you, America," after making a straight with 7-3 offsuit. His $7.5 million win triggered a poker boom in Australia. Hackham became a mentor for young Aussie players and still appears at major tournaments today. 2006, Jamie Gold. Hollywood agent Jamie Gold dominated a record-setting field of 8,773. His non-stop table talk and aggressive style won him $12 million, the biggest main event payout ever. His Q9 made the top pair to beat Paul Wasicka. Controversy followed. A legal dispute with a backer forced a settlement. Gold mostly retired but still plays charity events and media games. 2007, Jerry Yang. A psychologist and Laotian refugee, Jerry Yang qualified for a $225 satellite. He beat 6,358 players and won $8.25 million with pocket eights. Yang donated 10% to charity, wrote a memoir, and opened a restaurant. Though he faced financial trouble later, his win remains a symbol of poker's human side. 2008, Peter Eastgate. At just 22, Denmark's Peter Eastgate became the youngest champ ever at the time. He beat 6,844 players with A5, making a wheel straight. Despite winning $9.15 million, Eastgate later walked away from poker, even auctioning his bracelet for charity. He occasionally returns to play, but largely avoids the spotlight. Joe Cader. A year later, Eastgate's record was broken. 21-year-old Joe Cader from Michigan beat 6,494 players with pocket nines. The online prodigy proved it wasn't a fluke. He later won 2 more bracelets and made another main event final table in 2018. Still active and respected, Cader represents the new generation of elite young pros. By the end of the 2000s, poker had gone mainstream. Millions watched on ESPN. Anyone with a mouse and a dream could win. And while some champs faded away, others built legacies that lasted. But the boom was over. The game was evolving. The poker boom slowed, but the game didn't. The 2010s brought tighter fields, smarter players, and a more global champion circle. Old habits died, new pros rose, and the November 9 era gave us long, suspenseful final tables, with big paydays and even bigger personalities. 2010, Jonathan Duhamel. Canada's first main event champ, 23-year-old Jonathan Duhamel beat 7,319 players with AJ. He won nearly $9 million, then toured with the Stanley Cup. But the victory turned dark. He was robbed by an ex-girlfriend's accomplices in a violent home invasion. Duhamel recovered, won 2 more bracelets in 2015, and remains a high-stakes tournament regular. 2011, Pius Heinz. Wearing a white hoodie and armed with online aggression, 22-year-old Pius Heinz became Germany's first world champ. He beat 6,865 players, winning $8.7 million with AK. Heinz quickly stepped away from public poker, saying the fame was overwhelming. He remains a ghost of sorts, rarely seen at live events. 2012, Greg Merson. Greg Merson's story is one of redemption. A former addict, he overcame drug abuse and won 2 bracelets in one summer, including the main event. He defeated 6,598 players with K5 and earned $8.53 million. He was also named Player of the Year. Merson now advocates for addiction recovery and keeps a low public profile. 2013, Ryan Reese. Confident and controversial, 23-year-old Ryan Reese won $8.36 million after beating 6,352 players with AK. After his win, he claimed he was the best poker player in the world, a quote that drew mixed reactions. Reese has remained a successful tournament player and later walked back that bold claim, reflecting on his youthful mindset. 2014, Martin Jacobson. Sweden's Martin Jacobson delivered a masterclass. A former chef, he entered the final table as a short stack, but his pocket tens sealed a $10 million win over Felix Stevenson. Known for his preparation and calm demeanor, Jacobson later donated to charity and became a mental game advocate. He still plays and is one of the most respected champs of the decade. 2015, Joe McKeon. Nicknamed Joey Ice, 24-year-old Joe McKeon dominated from start to finish. He led the final table in chips and never looked back, defeating 6,420 players. His AT sealed a $7.68 million win. Though blunt and media averse, McKeon later won multiple bracelets in mixed games and earned respect as a consistently elite player. 2016, Queen Nguyen. Vietnamese American. Queen Nguyen came out of nowhere, wearing a raccoon fur cap and an ultra-aggressive style. He beat 6,737 players and won $8 million with KT, making a flush. A low-stakes cash player before his win, Qui later authored a book about his thought process and stepped back from the spotlight, satisfied with his fairy tale ending. 2017, Scott Blumstein. An online grinder from New Jersey, Scott Blumstein crushed the 7,221 player field. His final hand, a 2, cracking AK with a deuce on the river. He won $8.15 million, then promptly stepped back from high-stakes poker, preferring a quieter life. Occasionally spotted at tournaments, Blumstein enjoys a life beyond the felt. 2018, John Sin. After finishing 11th in 2016, John Sin returned 2 years later and finished the job. He beat 7,874 players in a record-breaking 10-hour heads-up battle. His KJ beat Tony Miles, earning $8.8 million. Humble and soft-spoken, Sin called it surreal, and now plays occasionally, always gracious and well-liked. 2019, Hossein Ensan. At 55, Hossein Ensan became the oldest champ in over 2 decades. Born in Iran, raised in Germany, he defeated 8,569 players and won $10 million with pocket kings. His cheerful singing presence made him a fan favorite. Ensan remains active on the European poker circuit, proudly representing Germany. The 2010s showed us that poker had truly gone global. Norway, Germany, Canada, Sweden, all waving the bracelet. Field stayed strong, stories stayed compelling, and as the next decade began, poker would face its biggest challenge yet, a global pandemic. The world shut down, but poker found a way. The 2020s tested everything: logistics, longevity, even the definition of the main event itself. And through it all, the WSOP crowned champions who redefined the modern era. 2020, Damian Salas. With COVID-19 forcing a format shakeup, Argentina's Damian Salas won a hybrid main event. He first won the international online bracket, then flew to Vegas to face Joseph Herbert in a heads-up finale. At 2:30 AM on a freezing January night, Salas clinched it with KJ. He became the first South American world champ, winning $2.55 million and inspiring a nation. 2021, Koray Aldemir. Germany's Koray Aldemir entered the live-only main event with ice in his veins. In a field of 6,650, he made one of the best calls in WSOP history, calling a bluff with just 2 pairs in the final hand. Aldemir took home $8 million and solidified his status as one of the game's elite. He still competes at the highest levels today. Tutusen Ochuetu, Espen Jørstad. A former esports gamer turned poker pro, Norway's Espen Jørstad beat 8,663 players, one of the largest fields ever. His Q2 held up against a bluff to win $10 million. Jørstad later revealed he'd sold half his action to a friend who walked away $5 million richer. Espen now travels, streams on Twitch, and shares poker insights regularly. 2023, Daniel Weinman. Daniel Weinman almost didn't enter the main event in 2023, but that last-minute decision made him a legend. He conquered a record-breaking field of 10,043 players and won $12.1 million. A bourbon enthusiast and longtime pro, Weinman triumphed with KJ against Stephen Jones. His win brought the title back to the USA in stunning fashion. 2024, Jonathan Tamayo. In 2024, another record was shattered. 10,112 players entered, but only one stood tall: Jonathan Tamayo. The veteran grinder finally had his moment. defeating amateur Joe Griff after a 65-hand heads-up duel. His unlikely winning hand, 8-3 suited, flopped 2 pairs to crack the top pair. Tamayo took home $10 million and silenced the doubters after years of near misses. 55 years, 55 champions. In the next video, we're diving into 50 crazy, wild, ridiculous poker facts you've probably never heard before.